Star Citizen's future as an MMO. The market is weird. I'm not an MMO player, but I don't, there's no end to the amount of videos that I've seen that are kind of just like critical opinion pieces about the state of MMOs and the different ones releasing and whether the idea of an MMO has died and how the 2000s were great. Star Citizen is a very unique project. I think it's one of the MMOs that attracts most people not from the MMO genre, myself included, and that gives it a bit of an edge. But do you think that it is still aimed in a place where it can stand out from the rest of the big MMOs, like your RuneScape, your Final Fantasy, your WoW, ESO? These kinds of MMOs I know have specific ways of doing things that you probably are much better, more aware of than I am. Do you think Star Citizen can kind of break the mold and make a unique place for itself in the market that people will pay attention to?
Yeah, it's a great question. At the risk of sounding like I don't even know what the term is, fanboy or shill, or I don't know, but like, I'm
a sycophant.
There's a little bit of a rant here, but like I'm not a space nerd or like a guy, like I'm not in Star Citizen because of the genre or because of like the FPS gameplay or anything like that. Like we talked about earlier in the show, like I am an MMO player, like Die Hard, that's all I played. And I've spent most of my time in fantasy games, like Sword and Sorcery, like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Ultimate Online. Those are like the games I have played the most. The reason I am in Star Citizen has nothing to do with the things that probably draw most people in. It has everything to do with like the potential I see in the project. I genuinely believe that like if the project is a success and CIG can overcome all the technical challenges, that is not like a guaranteed thing, right? Like that is a Herculean task. But if they are successful, like I genuinely believe that like Star Citizen could make WoW 2004 look like a minor event in gaming. I think that like it could be, it could even like define like a new class of like game. Like MMO might be selling it short to an extent. Like I think like what made WoW successful in 2004, in my opinion, is like that it brought like a new platform to like, it wasn't just about the game. It was about like the backdrop that it provided for people, like as people, right? Like you could come into the game and suddenly you had like this whole world you could interact with. You had like all this player like dynamic player-driven events. People were having weddings and funerals, and like they were planning like grand like PvP events. And it wasn't even about the raids and the dungeons. It was like all this.
It was like Second Life, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the fact that like Star Citizen is prioritizing that type of gameplay, in addition to giving like this super high fidelity environment and just the sheer scope and expanse of like how much space there will be, like a lot of the problems that you see in MMOs today, like kind of fade away with that reality. Like a good example is like if you go into Ashes of Creation now, like everybody's screaming about like the PvP mechanics in Ashes and like the ganking and the area control and like, but a lot of it has to do with like you're squishing together like a very competitive player base into like a small area, and you're kind of forcing that on people, and like there's no other way to play the game. But like one thing interesting about Star Citizen is like, yes, if you want that kind of gameplay, you can have it. Go to Pyro, go to this moon. There's going to be like a lot of like concentrated PvP there, but like it's also offering enough space that like players can kind of go off and find their own little hidden corner in the universe and play the way they want to play. And I'm kind of rambling at this point, but
well, as somebody who Star Citizen is the only MMO I've played, I don't have the perspective to understand how significant that is. Do other MMOs not focus on creating a lot of space for players to go and make their own areas?
Not really. I think it's a technical challenge, right? Like it's the whole reason
making
for
the world big enough.
Yeah, it's the whole reason for dynamic server meshing. Like the reason like they can't do what Ashes of Creation come out and they're like, hey, we're going to create this big map, and it's one of the biggest maps I've ever seen in a Sword and Sorcery MMO. But the way they're going to do it is they're going to grid it up, and they're going to have a server assigned to each region, and blah blah blah. Simple. Like Star Citizen couldn't do that because like the space that they want to provide people to operate in is so vast that you literally could not grid it up and serve it that way. They had to come out with a new technology, and so yeah, I think the amount of space they're offering people is a byproduct of like what they're doing on the innovation front. And so, yeah, very unique.
Interesting. When you say that you love MMOs, I get the idea that it's like a specific kind of loop or way of playing the game or kind of thing that happens. I know some MMOs are very focused on having you run like a narrative storyline. Some do more of random quests here and there. Does Star Citizen come off to you different in any way in that regard, or is it going kind of by the book?
The thing I love about MMOs is the people. So, I mean, that's what I can't get from a single player or even like a multiplayer game, right? It's just all the challenges that come along with taking a large group of people and organizing them and executing on objectives together and facing challenges and overcoming them as a group. And so, from that perspective, I think that so far, like Star Citizen offers a much more challenging environment for that. Like, just for example, like you go into like World of Warcraft and you conduct a raid, right? You have like a raid leader and you all group up at the entrance and the raid leader starts issuing orders and everybody follows them and you slowly progress through the raid and you get the treasure at the end. Like, that's not Star Citizen. Star Citizen is like, you look at something like Halthor and you're like, okay, we have 23 objectives on the ground and 7 in space and you're going to have to break up into squads and like, there's no way you could have one person just issuing orders, right, and have all these people following.
Yeah.
You need all this crosstalk. So like the challenges are far greater than what they are in traditional MMOs, as far as in my experience so far.
It's kind of mixing some of the more, I don't even want to say milsim, but more process-based games. Because you could look at something like Hard Space Shipbreaker as being more along the lines of where they want salvage to go, as opposed to just like a very simple thing to do. Like if there's a big ship you find for salvage, you need a team of people to figure out how to dismantle it, as opposed to just going in and everybody pressing buttons and getting rid of it quickly.
It's a big step forward, because I think one of the problems like other MMOs have is like a lot of these loops. You were asking me if there's like a loop, but a lot of these loops, like they become more boring over time. Like I've said this a few times. Like you think about like just something simple like mining, right? Like in a game like World of Warcraft or New World or any of these types of games, it's like you go out and you right click and your player hits it and hey, something appears in your inventory. Like in the beginning, everybody's all excited, like, oh, I'm gonna go out to do this and I'm gonna craft this and blah blah. But you know, a month, 2 months into the game, it's like, do I really have to go out and right click a bunch of rocks again? But like in Star Citizen, like the act of mining is like this big social activity, and like I can't see that really getting old for people, like in the same way that it does in these other MMOs.
Will be interesting to see. And when it does get old for people, how they facilitate your ability to just ask somebody else to do it and quickly get those goods back from them.
I keep thinking about like EVO Online, right? Like EVO Online's been going for 20 some years, and I can't even tell you the number of people I've talked to that are like, what'd you do in EVO Online? Oh, I mined for 10 years. I loved every minute of it. like something to it. But again, like EVE was one of those few games that took the act of like resource gathering and resource collection and they turned it into like a social activity rather than a solo activity.
Yeah, so it can be done.
Yeah.